want to skip to studying at Oxford.
Many years later, what's remarkable is that we all suffer from imposter syndrome.
Are you moulded in a way that you feel set up to succeed?
I do know that the level of application that I was required to put in was something I've not had to do since.
What is it that feeds the appetite in finance?
The bigger driver for me has been winning business. I got to see the world that I never had until that point.
The vision is something that is so important.
I've been relentless in driving the business development part of it, relentless in making sure that we adhere to the highest possible standards, that we are utterly faithful to our moral compass.
But it must be very special for them to be able to look up and work alongside their dad and be part of the continued success.
I don't think special is probably the word that they would use.
The board of directors live and breathe Abacus, and I think that's hard to find.
Recruitment is the biggest headache that I have as CEO of the business.
Welcome back to the latest episode of Manifesto Talks, and today I am joined by somebody that since the day I've met them, I've wanted to get on the podcast. It is the CEO of Abacus Financial Services, Mr. Chris Pitaluga. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks very much, Oliver. Pleasure to be here.
So if anyone who doesn't know you, can you give a quick introduction?
All right. I suppose you go straight to kind of the physical evidence, which is I'm 64 years old. Don't look it, of course. I look much older. The wear and tear. It's not the years, it's the mileage. I'm father to 5, grandfather to 4, and happily married for the best part of 40 years now.
Yeah. She deserve the medal, or you?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. She's a star. She's the real star of the show. Yeah.
So going back right to the start, where are you from? Where's your family from? Are you born and bred Gibraltarian?
Pitaluga is an Italian name by origin, as indeed many names in Gibraltar are. I did a DNA test thanks to one of my kids not that long ago, and I was very disappointed to find I'm only 5% Italian, overwhelmingly Spanish in my genes. But yeah, I've been born and bred here, of course, as indeed my parents were. I think I benefited from their remarkable education and their ambitions for their family. And as the eldest, I was kind of propelled constantly towards trying to push for personal success, which was a great ethic to instill in me, I think.
And what's it like growing up in Gibraltar? Because as let's say an outsider, right? To me, it's fascinating. It's obviously quite small. So, what's it like?
I guess again, possibly because of who my parents were, we did not grow up with what most Gibraltarians of that frontier closure era would have said, which is that Gibraltar was claustrophobic and the need to get out was paramount. My parents did take us on a lot of UK holidays, which is the only destination you could go to other than Morocco back then. But I think what we've heard others speak about on the Abacus podcast, which is the sense of community, the sense of the littleness of it being valuable, and the kind of commonality of shared interest and values, that's been the primary kind of benefit of being a Gibraltarian, I think.
This post-frontier closure, is that something that is hard for the younger generation to understand, or like what was it like?
Yes, I think it is hard for them to understand it because my children, for example, have never had that being a factor in their lives. Fact is, because we were like in our early teens to our late teens, as mainly growing up in that sort of time, we had plenty of other stuff to be doing, mainly hormonal, I suppose, at that time of your life, and therefore it's a distraction from pretty much everything else. I suppose I also knew that I was going to go to university at some point, and that was always going to be an outlet for getting away, so it was never really a preoccupation of mine. But there were certainly many of my generation who were very directly impacted by having to live in an enclosed environment like that for 16 years. Yeah, absolutely.
Incredible.
Yeah.
You touched on your parents being a massive driving force. What were your aspirations growing up? Was it what you've become today, or was there something else? Was it always education based?
Is it stupid to say I didn't have any aspirations? I mean, I don't know if that sounds underwhelming.
Some
underwhelmingly.
now kids would want to be a YouTuber potentially, or back in my era it was everyone wanted to be a footballer. Was there something that an astronaut, or was it that actually, we'll get on to clearly very good academically, so let's just see where that takes me? Was it that simple?
I think at 12, if you'd asked me, I would have said astronaut, definitely.
Yeah.
Real shame. That didn't work out. So plan B would have just been do as well as I can academically and see where that goes. But I wasn't imaginative enough or creative enough in my vision for my own personal future to have anything that looked like a plan. That never happened. I suppose the one thing, again, to be really corny, but the one thing that was dominant in my head was I did know I wanted to be married. I did know I wanted to be a dad, and both of those two things have been clearly far and away the most fulfilling parts of my life. Yeah.
I want to skip to studying at Oxford, and what I want to skip to is what you studied is quite for me, would seem far away from what you've ended up doing. No? It was studying English literature.
Correct. Yeah.
There we go. Done a little bit of study. Done a bit of research.
Yes. I think anybody it happens to a lot of people in many contexts, but now having spoken to some of my contemporaries at Oxford many years later, what's remarkable is that we all suffered from imposter syndrome.
Wow.
None of us felt that we deserved to be there. We all felt that we'd somehow struggled to get into a premier education establishment like that. But the benefits of having been there, not just in terms of the learning, but just in terms of the rigor of how your intellect is challenged and the way you're able to marshal arguments, the discipline that you learn in just pursuing a point to exhaustion.
Are you moulded in a way that you feel set up to succeed? If I relate, very fortunate to go to private school, and it always felt that you were, in an organic way, you were not led to believe, and maybe it's just a very personal experience, but it felt like we were always positioned. It was always talking about what you can do in the future rather than a negative of the future. It was prompting you to succeed. Was that the environment?
I don't think if it was, it passed me by, because I think the ethos that I was challenged with was just about making sure I got the best possible degree, and the level of I do know that the level of application that I was required to put in was something I've not had to do since. It was just an utterly incredible, intense, hard-working acquisition of knowledge. Having spoken again to my contemporaries from that time, I don't think they felt that either. Some of them have just gone to do very, very ordinary things, as indeed have I. I mean, we've done nothing spectacular. We just got on with our lives, try to make the best success of what we can. But I don't think there was an ethos that said you've got to be the best or you should be trying to be the best.
But, see, that's interesting, because I think what for you is non-spectacular would be seen as your normal. Right, and then I think if you're in that sort of environment where success is normalized and it's something that you should be able to go on and achieve, then I think your outlook on it is, all I've done is continue on the way that was expected. Whereas someone looking from the outside, I would say what you've managed to achieve is extremely successful and something to be, well, of course you're proud of it, but I think that's where that is built from, is that what they do is normalize success, not in a way of it doesn't matter, but it's almost something that you're destined for, which is very philosophical. That would be my take.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, actually, because when I referred to the expectations of the level of intensity of the work, there was an extremely rigorous process that said you've got to clear these hurdles and you've got to clear them well in order to be able to get on to the next level of our expectations of you in getting your degree. Yeah, that is true. I think that's a fair point. That's a good point.
Talking the next level, we finish Oxford. What is the next stage? Because I know there's a stint in banking, right? Is that returning to the Rock, or is that staying in the UK, or what was the stage after Oxford?
Yeah, just rewind to what I said about somehow I managed to get a girlfriend. That was very hard work, but I did manage to persuade some poor deluded woman to go out with me, and she's been with me all that time. But of course, she was rock-based, and that meant coming back to that. That was the primary driver of coming back. I did want to come back to the Rock. I mean, it is a charming place, and back then I just didn't know a bigger world, so it just made sense to do that. Economically, also, it was just not viable to seek any alternative. The mid-'80s were just not... Life back then was just not what it is today. Travel was just different scale, much smaller. So yeah, just coming back was like the default and almost unthought of alternative.
We'll touch on that in a minute, but obviously your two sons have returned and now work with you here. Is that the same advice you would give to your younger self? If, let's say, romance was not involved, would you say, come back? Or would you say, take a minute and maybe go and experience the different world if you were in this generation now?
Again, I think that's a fair point because whilst what I've said so far might just seem very unambitious and kind of very ordinary, there were points in my career where I did try to persuade my wife to not necessarily take a different path, but just see what's out there and let's just try and do something different. Her reluctance to do that actually was very influential, but I think influential, looking back now, for the good, because it's meant that I have been able to spend the best part of 30 years at Abacus and doing what we've done here. I do think that if it was open to them and they showed any interest in doing it, I would be telling my kids, just think about going out for a little while and just doing something different. In addition to your degree, go and try something different, and then come back if you want to, if you feel that this is a good place to bring up your kids and do what you got to do.
So returning back, you worked at Hassan's. Was that your first job back?
That was my literal first job was working as a shelf filler in the supermarket called Lipton's back then. I don't know, it still survives in packets of tea. But yes, my first real job would have been at Hassan's, which is I just kind of fell into it almost by accident because there was such limited availability of work at the time anyway. But of course, it was a defining moment in the sense that it was company management already back then, and it's been company management and trusteeship ever since. So I haven't really broadened out from that other than doing that in the banking world, which I suspect we'll come on to in a bit. But there's not much difference in the scenario in which you're doing it. And the core was always as a result of that first decision.
So what is it that feeds the appetite in finance? Is it the problem solving? Because to me, you go from English lit to...
That's a good question. I have reflected on that from time to time, and I think it is about problem solving, for one. In business, generally, I would say the bigger driver for me has been winning business.
So the clients.
There's very little to compare with the buzz of winning a client. And the bigger the better the client, the bigger the better the buzz. And again, I've tried to kind of preach that not just to my children, but also to the staff here at Abacus, that when you win clients, the reward of doing that is already there. The financial reward, well, great if you can get it and maximize it, but just that sense of someone's trusting me to deliver something for them, and I've been able to convey to them that I'm their man. That's a great feeling.
Yeah. I completely agree. So where does the banking come into it?
Again, if you rewind to the 80s and 90s, because the sectors that we currently have today were that much smaller, the range of opportunity was therefore that much smaller. And if you wanted to step out from very basic company administration that you'd be doing at a law firm, then banking would have been the logical place to go, particularly because there were a lot of international banks here back then. I think at one point there were 27 international banks. I mean, that's now scaled back a lot. But I happened to work for 2 international banks, and it was a fantastic experience because not only did I work for senior managers who were very, very good at what they did and very schooled in the world of trusteeship, but I benefited from traveling extensively through my employment there, and it meant I got to see the world that I never had until that point. And it meant that the international dimension that I brought to my work has never gone away, and that's what I've tried to bring to my business here, but also to my staff and my colleagues, is just to have that international outlook. Yeah.
So we fast forward to 1995, 34 years old, I believe.
Correct. Yes.
Join Abacus.
Yes.
And a whole new chapter begins.
Yes.
It was only 7 people, I believe.
It was only seven people back then. It was very, very small. You may want to cut this part out of the podcast, but the reason why I joined Abacus was because it was one of those inflection moments when we could have gone abroad. The branch of Barclays that I was working for back then, they decided to close down the trust company that I worked for at Barclays. But they offered me a job in the Channel Islands, and I was kind of, ooh, that sounds good. Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, at least for a few years. Mercy was really reluctant to go. We already had a young family. And for various reasons, I was keen on having a third child. And I said, okay, if I find as good a job or better, we'll stay, but we're going to have another baby. And to my amazement, she agreed. And that's why my third son, Joseph, now has the kind of life that he has.
Fantastic.
But yeah, coming to Abacus was momentous in a way because, again, the context shifted. It was now an accountancy practice. I was doing the same kind of work, but now within the ambit of an accountancy firm. And that too brought a completely different twist and new skills to be learned, new opportunities to work at.
I want to talk about the growth from what was 7 to what is now 60 plus, which is incredible. And I think of having looked at videos where you've spoke before and watched you on your own podcast, the vision is something that is so important for you, for Abacus. So let's talk about that.
I suppose if there's one characteristic that I've brought to what I've done, when I say I've done, I mean my contribution to it, rather than a lot of people have been responsible for that development. It's the relentlessness of it. I've been relentless in driving the business development part of it, relentless in making sure that we adhere to the highest possible standards, that our work ethic is second to none, that we do not compromise on quality, but also that we do not compromise on integrity, and that we are utterly faithful to our moral compass, that we do not take on dirty clients, that we are as sanctimonious as we say we are. And I think if I've made a contribution to that development, it's been that component of it. I have had the extreme privilege of working alongside some fantastic people throughout that time, and we've just driven the business forward in that way. But it's the relentless nature of sticking to that truth as much as possible.
Recruitment must be difficult. Recruiting the right people. I mean, we're at the stage where it's 25 people across the offices, let alone 60 plus. And I think there's a lot to be said for the conversations we've had where, the board of directors live and breathe Abacus, and I think that's hard to find.
Yes, and I wouldn't really want to get into the kind of political dimension of why there is that small pool of talent available to us. But the fact that's the fact that we got to live with. It just is a very small pool of talent that's out there that we can draw on, and a lot of our competitors have taken advantage of us in that respect by picking up some real nuggets that we've been working on for a long time, and staff have left us obviously because they've been enticed away by other things. But yes, recruitment is the biggest headache that I have as CEO of the business. Yeah, it's very hard.
Talking of recruitment, you're very fortunate to work with your 2 sons, Daniel and Julian.
Yeah.
That must be incredible. I'm fortunate enough that me and my dad get to go and play once a week. We go and play a bit of golf. But it must be very special for them to be able to look up and work alongside their dad and be part of the continued success.
I think you're going to have to ask them about how special it is. I don't think special is probably the word that they would use. For me, it's certainly very special, and I do find myself kind of lost in amazement at just hearing them talk about stuff and their understanding and their knowledge. It is absolutely rewarding. Yeah, totally. One of the best thing going. Yeah. Probably
the most important topic: the mighty Arsenal FC. All right, we're both big Arsenal fans. Where did that love affair begin? Is that from the parents? Where did the love affair with Arsenal begin?
Well, my parents were completely uninterested in football.
Okay.
My dad especially had absolutely no interest at all in it. Arsenal won the double in 1971. I was 10. I suppose that's the age where a lot of boys just think, okay, that works.
Yeah. Glory.
But it's been downhill since then, hasn't it?
I've not experienced that.
Not quite.
But you first came to our office, and we were having the kind of the introductory meeting. And I looked down and I noticed a pair of Arsenal socks, and I thought, we're going to be okay. I thought, we're going to be okay. Is this season the season? It's the hope that kills you.
Yes, so it's a choice between hope and ancestral memory, isn't it? Because the last 25 years have been very barren, well, moderately barren. Do we dare hope? I guess not. I think not. I'm going to err on the side of caution.
I've got a little bubbling of excitement, but I did that.
We ain't going to do it. We ain't going to do it. We'll bottle it somehow.
I want to go back, and one question that we like to end on. If you could go back and talk to the younger version of yourself, walking down Main Street, right, and you could give him one piece of life advice, what would that be?
Yeah. I think if it would be, take the risks that you're planning to take the risks that you're inevitably going to take because that's in your nature. But before you take them, just think them through a little better and just see what the downsides might be, just in order to evaluate what your options are going to be like. I am a risk taker. I have a high risk appetite. And yeah, there have been times when it's been like, oh, crumbs, that shouldn't have happened. That plate got smashed on its way down. So not necessarily more caution in taking the risk, but just thinking through the consequences of what each of those options might have been rather than just a rush into it impulsively, which has always been the...
Is that something with age? Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
I think
so.
so.
I'll get there.
Yeah. Not too soon though. Yeah.
What does the future hold for yourself and Abacus? Because I think it's a very exciting time.
Yeah. I think the richness of living in this time is that you have so much wisdom, so much intellectual output on podcasts, on media, that if you're listening to the right people and the right kind of stuff, the guidance is there, and I'm certainly doing a lot of that. I love the teaching. I love being a mentor to the people who currently work for me, but not just privately, and not just professionally, but also in my private sphere as well. And for me personally, I do think I'd like to work for as long as I can, as long as health allows that. But hopefully in the kind of more sort of wise old bird style of the sage who just will not go away. That I think I can live with that.
The culture you've created is great, and is there a key to that, or is it recruitment? Because the culture, when we spoke, you know, and as much as what's wonderful, as much as you say, I ask, are you happy with Manifesto? You say, are you happy with working with Abacus? And I touch on it a lot, that the culture's wonderful. It's got the perfect balance of corporate, yet feels like a family business. How do you build that?
Well, I do think that going back, say, 12 years, I'd been fortunate to be called the CEO, but that was simply by virtue of being a shareholder and a director. And when you're both of those things, you can call yourself pretty much whatever you like. But it wasn't until about 10, 12 years ago that the penny actually dropped. So I would have been in my early 50s, I suppose, which is late, to realize, actually, this is what a CEO should be doing. Okay. And it really was then that I started to think much more about culture, much more about staff retention, much more about making sure that people were because we always talk in these cliches about our people being our biggest asset, all this kind of thing. But I think there's real value to be taken for the business, but also personally from enhancing that. And I have spent the last 10 years just trying to really wire that in. Culture is incredibly difficult to shift. We, I think, suffered from having a much more compliance-oriented culture as part of our heritage from being a PwC firm until 2012. and we would default to compliance constantly. We'd ask compliance, is it okay to take on this bit of business? Should we? That's not why you're in business. You're in business to take risks, and you don't sort of depend on some compliance guy. Oh God, they've got to shoot me for this. But you don't depend on some compliance guy to tell you whether that's good business or bad business. But I think if you're going to take that view, you've got to back it up by having the right culture that says, I'm going to look at it, I'm going to take the risk, but I'm going to evaluate it on these criteria, and my values are more important than my fears. So if you base it on that, and you get your people to start thinking that way, then I think you end up with the right mix of enthusiasm, determination, staff retention, and just a desire to be working together and having fun together.
Well, I know you're an extremely busy man, and I want to thank you not only as being a fantastic collaborator with Manifesto. We're very proud of the work we do with yourselves, and long may it continue. But thank you so much for your time. It's incredibly valuable. So I truly appreciate it.
Thanks very much. In the short time that we've known you, it's been just as valuable for us, I have to say. I'm not just paying you a compliment for the sake of it. You know, I don't dish those out very gratuitously. It's been a real pleasure to be working with you guys.
Great. Thank you very much.